Which brings us, Caroline Fenton, to our main point of the day. I can't believe we've held off this long. Shedeur Sanders mania. Everybody loves to talk about Shedeur, and rightfully so, because he went out and absolutely balled out this weekend. You were there at this game. And look, it's just one of those moments where we knew people were going to be fixated. We knew the result was going to be overanalyzed. I'm just happy we're overanalyzing how good the result was instead of how bad it was. This was a big moment for Shedeur.
Yeah, I mean, I was there, and I'll have a full breakdown a little bit later on in the show of just how much Shedeur mania existed in Charlotte. I live in Charlotte. It wasn't even in Cleveland, and Shedeur mania existed in Charlotte. I think overall, my biggest takeaway from the day is that Shedeur couldn't have scripted a better debut. After an offseason of a lot of chatter and conversation and doubt falling to the 5th round when he was a projected first-round pick, there was even conversation of him being the first overall pick, and he fell to the 5th round. Shedeur Sanders, I think, quieted the greatest of Shedeur Sanders haters. Was it perfect? No, it wasn't. 3 and out on the first drive. He threw a near pick. But overall, I think Shedeur Sanders showed so much promise. That's at least what my biggest takeaway was, Fitz. In the red zone, he was excellent. The 2-minute drill to close out the first half, I think, was so perfectly executed. And a couple of things that led me to believe that maybe Shedeur wasn't the top 5 overall pick prospect that he was lauded to be in his time at Colorado. He took way too many sacks. Well, there were 2 specific instances that I saw on Friday night. There was a 3rd and 9 where the Browns were backed up deep into their own territory. The pressure was coming. Shedeur steps up and delivers a 29-yard beauty for a first down. I mean, that shows calm, cool, and collectedness. There was another one in the red zone where Shedeur steps up, evades the pressure, and delivers a dart into the end zone for their 2nd touchdown on the day. That showed calm, cool, collectedness, and that showed, at least in the short amount of time that we've seen from his time in Colorado to now his time in the NFL, that he might not be taking as many sacks as he did at his time in college. The other thing was arm strength. He threw a lot of wobbly balls in his time at Colorado, but we saw lasers, Fitz, lasers. Now, again, it was 3 quarters of work. It was 1 preseason game. I'm not going to get too high or too low on anything that we see in a preseason game, especially when it's just 1. But so far, we're in 1 exam in the semester. We don't have final semester grades yet. We haven't taken the final exams yet. But in his first test, his first exam, Shedeur Sanders gets an A.
This is why this was lose-lose for me, though, Caroline. Like, look, I'm getting killed on Instagram right now because Inside Coverage, the show I've hosted a long time for Yahoo Sports, we talked about Shedeur, and I said I thought him playing was lose-lose because if he comes out and he's awful, we're all going to overreact to it. And if he comes out and he's great, we're all going to overreact to it. And I'm just getting destroyed by Browns fans that are telling me today I owe an apology. I stand by the overall take. Like, this is exactly what the problem here is. Like, Kevin Stefanski is a 2-time coach of the year. So if you believe Kevin Stefanski is an idiot, then you should probably leave this conversation. I don't believe he's an idiot, which means he's listed his depth chart based on everything he's seen throughout the course of the entirety of the offseason. Now, Shedeur was playing because the 2nd and 3rd quarterbacks on the depth chart both have hamstring injuries, and they're protecting Joe Flacco. So he gets in and he makes the most of his opportunity, which is what we all want. Like, I want Shedeur to succeed. I also want Dylan Gabriel to succeed. Hell, I'd love to see Kenny Pickett getting a starting job. There aren't enough good quarterbacks in the NFL. More is better. But the problem here is that now everybody wants to turn this into, should Shedeur be starting? Well, this is 3 quarters of a preseason game playing a vanilla offense or defense. He did everything that's being asked of him, and he did it really well. And I want to praise that. I want to say loudly from the mountaintop, Shedeur, you kicked butt, dude. That was awesome. Congratulations. What does that mean for the depth chart? I don't think it means anything. Because at some point, we didn't get to see Dylan Gabriel against this defense. We didn't get to see Kenny Pickett against this defense. They're still trusting Joe Flacco, especially with their schedule at the beginning of the season as the starter. So this creates more hype and more everybody wants to get more into it. But I'm not sure that it actually changes the result, which just makes all of this more frustrating for me, Caroline.
And look, I agree with you. This doesn't change the depth chart. I'm not going to say that it doesn't change anything, because what it changes for me is my perception of Shedeur and his ability to be a quarterback in the NFL. I think it does change some things, but does it change the depth chart? Probably not. And Mary Kay Cabot, who is more plugged into the Cleveland Browns than any other reporter out there, she's been covering the Browns for years. She even came out and said it, that Kevin Stefanski said, this doesn't change much. This doesn't change anything for us, really. It's going to take more than 3 solid quarters in a preseason game for us to completely uproot our plans. I think that's the correct response. Again, we don't, as fans and as broadcasters and lovers and appreciators of this game, can't get too high or too low on what we see in a preseason game. And a coach certainly can't get too high or too low from what they see in a preseason game. And I want to say this isn't exclusive to Shedeur. He had a very solid outing. I think he shined. He was so impressive that he exceeded my expectations from what we saw from him, at least in his debut. And that's wonderful and that's great. And Shedeur can step back today and say the haters doubted me, and right now the haters were wrong. But not being too high or too low on a player is not exclusive to Shedeur Sanders. That is the mindset that we and coaches and general managers and owners and players in the league have on preseason debuts. It's not like we're saying that Shedeur doesn't deserve anything because it's Shedeur Sanders. Of course not. We're saying that you just have to take everything with a little bit of a grain of salt. And again, like you mentioned, we still haven't seen Dillon Gabriel. He's still coming back from an injury. And if Dillon Gabriel loses reps and loses opportunities to injury because Shedeur keeps getting better and better and better, well, that's football. So far, so good. We need to see more.
I would love it.
So far, so good for Shedeur.
I love the concept of this happening, Caroline. I love the concept of chaos. You know me, I'm an agent of chaos. I want everything to be wildly chaotic. And frankly, the more people are chaotic, the better for what we do for a living. The part of this for Shedeur that I think it's a little lost sometimes is, if you're a Browns fan, shout out to our producer, Mike, who's doing a great job and is a Browns fan. If you're a Browns fan, I believe if you want Shedeur to be a Hall of Famer, what you want is Shedeur to get the opportunity to develop. And I will remind everybody that a month into the season last year, people were yelling and screaming that Jaden Daniels couldn't even push the ball past the line of scrimmage because his depth of attempt was so just scrawny that it showed that they didn't trust Jaden Daniels, right? Like, there is a developmental process to the quarterback position. If you want Shedeur to be the future of the Cleveland Browns, then you want them to be true to that developmental process. You don't want them to microwave it simply so that you can get him on the field so that you can get your yayas right now. Like, you're going to have to be patient in the overall return of this. I don't care who we're talking about as a rookie quarterback. Part of the process is making sure that you get the most out of that guy long term. And I believe, especially when you look at the first 6 weeks of the schedule of the Browns, which includes a ton of teams we expect to make the playoffs and is brutal, I believe that the best approach is looking at it and saying, hey, I don't care what anybody wants. I don't care about the media hype. I don't care about the sensation. I don't care about the clicks. I don't care about the TV views. I care about making Shedeur better. If he's already gotten better in this amount of time, imagine how much better he can continue to get walking this path. I don't think there should be any rush to start him just because he looked good in this game. I want us to be fair. If he sucked in the game, everybody would be freaking out. He was great in the game, so everybody's freaking out. But either result, to me, would have given me the same result next week, which is it's a long, slow process to becoming a very good quarterback in the NFL for Shedeur Sanders.
And that's the logic I think we can apply to several different rookie quarterbacks, right? I think the same thing about Jackson Dart. Like, I don't disagree with the Giants' decision to start Russell Wilson in the first couple of weeks in the season, because what's the point in rushing Jackson Dart? It's the same thing with either Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders. What's the point of rushing them when you don't have to, and when you start the season with the Bengals, the Ravens, the Packers, the Lions, the Vikings, and the Steelers? Oh, man. Murderer's row, Fitzy.
Yeah, that is going to be